On a small, remote island in Georgia, John F. Kennedy Jr., the most eligible bachelor in the world, wed Carolyn Bessette in a covert ceremony late on September 21, 1996. Just 40 people received invitations, and many of them were unaware that they would be at the decade's most noteworthy event. Kennedy's former executive assistant Rosemarie Terenzio and journalist Liz McNeil compiled personal interviews from those who knew the couple the best and who were among the select few on Cumberland Island that day 29 years ago for their book, JFK Jr., An Intimate Oral Biography. Terenzio, Rosemarie. Every time I mentioned the planning, I would just say, Nicole Miller's wedding. Nicole Miller is a fashion designer who coincidentally happened to be arranging her nuptials around the same time. I was so afraid that someone would overhear us. JFK Jr.'s close buddy and former college roommate, Sasha Chermayeff. A small number of family members were invited, including Caroline, John's sister, and her family, Tim Shriver, William Kennedy Smith, Bobby Jr. and his wife, Mary Richardson, and one family member each representing his father's siblings. His cousin Anthony served as his best man, but Lee Radziwill was left out. What did he do about that? Although Anthony is my best man, his mother will not be attending my wedding. Out of consideration for how it could have appeared, I believe he would have asked his mother, Jackie Kennedy, what she wanted him to do if she had been living. He obviously didn't care, though, as his mother wasn't present. Carolyn did ask him if he was certain. "Isn't inviting her crazy?" "I'm not inviting her," was the response. Terenzio, Rosemarie. John claimed that he didn't trust Lee to maintain the confidentiality, which is, I believe, one of the reasons he didn't ask her to the wedding. He was aware that she wouldn't follow their instructions, which would ruin everything. The amusing thing is that Carolyn and John exchanged gifts at their apartment on Christmas following the wedding. After giving her a Hermes blanket, Carolyn opened the box of Duane Reade clips that Lee had given her as a gift. Duane Reade scrunchies and hair clips, similar to goodies. "I think this is hysterical," Carolyn replied. "You know what that was, don't you, honey?" she asked. "F word for you for not inviting me to your wedding." That was the attitude. "You dare." Griakos, George, the hairstylist for Carolyn. Since there was a lot of security at the wedding, and we would need to present them in order to move around, they gave us these coins, or buffalo nickels, to carry around when we arrived on the island. Mine is still with me. Everybody had them, and they were from a rare year. The proprietor of Grayfield Inn on Cumberland Island and the designer of the couple's ring, Go-Go Ferguson. As visitors began to arrive, we had a fantastic beachside barbecue. The rehearsal supper was then held on the upstairs porch of the Grayfield Inn. The speeches were amazing, and the setting was stunning. Chermayeff, Sasha. From the moment we all arrived till the moment we all departed, it felt small enough to have this incredibly enjoyable private vibe. Carolyn was feeling extremely upbeat on the night of the rehearsal dinner. John seated me at the table next to him. "This is where my mother would have sat," he murmured to me. This beautiful large porch was the setting for the dinner. I recall making a toast and describing how I was completely swept away by Carolyn when I first saw her, and how I had a strong suspicion that she would be the one he would fall in love with. I related how John kept asking me, "How did you know Phil was the one at my own wedding?" He kept asking me the same question, "How can I tell?" "I just know that he's my man. I do, although I don't know why. I just have a gut feeling." And I recall John being ecstatic that he would have someone and that such a thing could happen to him. Carolyn reminded me of that woman. I loved her. I thought she was exceptional because she refused to break under the stress. Who knew? It became complicated. Carolyn was anxious, and she disappeared the next day, the wedding day. Carolyn wasn't around when we were playing on the beach, but we were all very cozy and kind and just having fun with John's nieces. Kyriakos, George. The night before the wedding, John slept on a cot in my room with my then-wife, Jackie. Which is absurd because John was sleeping on a cot in our room while everyone else had rooms in this huge estate. The whole "don't sleep with the bride the night before the wedding" thing was at issue. Ferguson, Gogo. John wanted to get married at the island's North End First African Baptist Church. This island is over 20 miles long. Everyone was dressed and seated in the back of a cargo line of trucks that were traveling up the beach at low tide. We had to move all the Chippendale dining room chairs to the back of these pickup trucks. He wanted to get married in that church, so we took pickup trucks and drove 16 kilometers. I called the Candler family, who founded the Coca-Cola Company and own a house on the island's north tip the night before. And I asked Mary Warren, Candler, if John and Carolyn could change at one of the houses before the event. That dress was so tight and cut on the bias that it took an hour to put on. Her body felt like it was being covered in cream. She had the look of a calla lily. The designer, Narciso Rodriguez, was trying to sew her into the outfit. We were all rushing because we were running so late to the church. Terenzio, Rosemarie. Narciso had to open it and then close it again because the neckline was too snug to fit over her head. She had made 2 appointments for fittings, but I think the dress wasn't finished yet, and Carolyn was thinking it'll be fine, knowing that she wouldn't have to travel back to Paris for another fitting when the finishing touches were applied. But that was the reason it took so long. Later that day, they covered her head with a scarf so she could put on the outfit, to avoid getting makeup on the outfit and damaging her hair. Ferguson, Gogo. When we finally dress her, John forgets his father's cufflinks. Dave is, Gogo's husband, speeding down the beach in an attempt to find people at the inn. Carolyn doesn't sit down and wrinkle the dress at all because she's on her knees in the back seat of my pickup truck with her hands on the front seat when we finally get it together, and we're bouncing to the church down this way. Kyriakos, George. The weird thing was that a reporter tried to enter the island covertly as we were driving, but he was actually passing through wetlands that were plagued with alligators, so he just gave up. He was so messed up from trekking through the swamp that he put his hands up and gave up. "Please just arrest me," he said. "I must get out of here." Ferguson, Gogo. Everyone has been waiting for about an hour and a half for the ceremony to begin. Carolyn placed little exquisite Bibles with the wedding date on each seat. Mine and a little straw fan are still with me. She had little straw fans for everyone because it was really hot. By the time we got her dressed and I drove her down the road in my truck, it was getting dark, so we used all the candles and flashlights we had to illuminate the church. The church had no electricity. It was beautiful. Inside the church, everyone was quiet and in the present. After they spoke their vows, we all cheered, and I think we joined in on "When the Saints Go Marching In." I think John and Carolyn were forced back into the inn compound by the sheriff's department. Driving inside the enclosure, which was filled with white paper sandbags and candles, was one of those moments you want to remember forever. We were a little rushed to get to the reception at the inn. To get there before the tide came in, everyone kind of hurried into pickup trucks. There was a DJ at the reception. It was funny when my young stepdaughter tried to teach Teddy Kennedy the Macarena. Chermayev, Sasha. Then, as was her custom with Carolyn, she let her hair down while we were all eating dinner and cutting the cake. It was literal with her. She wore her hair up or down, and it was also closely related to her emotional state. I remember how anxious she was, and once everything was over, we were clapping our hands together like we were giving each other high fives. Wow! They had just exchanged vows. There was one oddity. Her circle didn't seem to be adequately represented to me. It was just a strange wedding that was all about John. Terenzio, Rosemarie. Although Carolyn had a small network of friends, she trusted them. She had gotten most of them from Calvin. Because he was John Kennedy, her circle was smaller than John's. Radziwill, Carl, JFK Jr.'s cousin Anthony Radziwill's wife. Ed said during his toast, "Politics plus fashion equals passion," and he showed everyone the t-shirt he had sewn with the phrase on. At the rehearsal dinner, Carolyn's mother also made a toast, which served as a kind of warning. For example, "I hope my daughter has the strength to manage all of this." Littell, Robbie, a former classmate of JFK Jr. "I'll never be able to understand why he gave us boxer shorts as a gift. He probably put his initials on them so we could wear them to bed with our spouses, I thought. Actually, though, it was our initials. It's still a strange thing, though. Tiny, revealing silk underwear." Terenzio, Rosemarie, "That probably was Carolyn's suggestion." Littell, Robbie, "Mine wasn't very comfortable. 2 sizes too small. It was probably a deliberate insult." Terenzio, Rosemarie,